My name is Melissa Azallion, and I'm a partner on the immigration team at Byrne Foreman. And today I want to talk to you about how to successfully prepare for an ICE investigation. Recently, ICE raided several companies in the state of Mississippi, which resulted in arrest of over 600 employees. This was the largest single-state immigration enforcement operation in the history of the country. The statistics show that ICE raids and ICE audits are continuing across the country. So it's important as an employer that you understand how to prepare for an ICE investigation and what you can do to make sure your business records are in order. First, let's talk about what are the mechanics of an ICE audit. An ICE audit is usually conducted by the Department of Homeland Security Investigations. And they will come on site, audit I-9 records, and usually those audits are either random or they can be targeted based upon a tip or a lead. And it's important for a business at the outset to understand the purpose of the audit. Sometimes audits are looking at I-9 records only. Other times, ICE auditors want to look at arresting undocumented workers and may need a warrant. Sometimes they want to do both. So you want to always assess the purpose at the outset of the audit. So how are ICE audits conducted? ICE usually comes onto your place of business and they personally serve the company with what's called a notice of inspection and subpoena. Usually this is done with the receptionist sitting at the front desk. So you want to make sure that you have a clear protocol for how you want that person to respond, who you want them to call, what information they should or should not give. A notice of inspection, usually an employer has 3 days to respond with supplying I-9 records for current and sometimes terminated employees. And with a subpoena, you usually have a little bit longer period of time, about a 10-day window. And with a subpoena, what ICE is often asking for are financial records, corporate records, maybe information about whether you have contractors. So what should you do when ICE arrives at your business? One of the things that you want to do is gather a really good team, and oftentimes that's comprised of somebody on your HR team and perhaps your outside legal counsel. You need to decide who's going to be the interface from the very beginning with ICE. So you want to start gathering your records knowing that you're going to respond to the notice of inspection probably within a 3-day period. And what that really means is gathering your original I-9 forms, any supporting documents that you have, so that might be copies of documents that you've recorded in Section 2, and also gather any E-Verify records that you have. You want to make sure you understand for the particular state that you're in, ICE's position on any changes made to those I-9 forms. Some states have auditors who take the position that once ICE audits your records, you can't make any changes at that point on the I-9 forms. So you want to make sure you know the policy and the practice in your particular state. Also, if you happen to be using an electronic I-9 system, you want to make sure that you coordinate with your vendor and gather the right information from them to make sure that you're ready to produce those records as well. And finally, make sure that you make copies of everything that you submit, because that will be something that you want to retain for questions that may come up and share with your legal counsel as well. During the course of the investigation, there's many questions that can come up from ICE. And one of those might be asking you to make some corrections on certain I-9 forms. We call those technical or procedural corrections. And usually you have a 10-day window with which to make those corrections. You may also receive some correspondence indicating that you have some unauthorized workers in your place of business. And that often requires you to do some follow-up with those employees, and it may result in termination. At the end of the audit, once all of this has occurred, usually ICE will either issue you a warning notice, which may sound negative, but really means that probably the company is in compliance, generally speaking. Or you may get what's called a notice of intent to fine, and this would be a very complex document which would list the various violations and the penalties associated with that. One of the options for a business upon receiving a notice of intent to fine is appeal that to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And this is certainly something that you would want to talk with your legal counsel about as to whether that would be the best next step for your company. So what can be the result in an ICE audit? Oftentimes it's either civil and/or criminal penalties. Civil penalties, several factors are looked at and are things that you may as a company want to argue during the ICE audit process. Those factors would be your size, whether you've had any prior violations, what the seriousness of those violations might have been, and whether you believe that you've acted in good faith. If ICE is looking to penalize you for what we'll call paperwork violations, then the penalty range today is typically anywhere from $230 to about $2,300 per worker. If ICE is looking to penalize you for something a little more serious or what we might call a knowing or intentional violation, the penalties are higher, and those range from about $570 to about $4,500. If you have any questions or need more information, please feel free to contact us at the Byrne-Foreman Immigration Team, and we would be happy to talk to you about how to successfully prepare for an ICE investigation.